We get on, won't we? And the hairs on her dicky dido hung down to her knees. More on that story later. Good evening and a very warm welcome to Thursday Night Live with me, the Honourable the Honourable Titty the Tambourine Man. And you're very welcome to this, and it's a joy to be with you, coming live into your eyes and ears, direct from Windy Bum here in the Peak District National Park. Gordon's alive. Evening, Simon. Hello, Matt. Good evening, Barry. God, 102 there in Missouri, is it? Blimey, I was listening to the reports from Phoenix, where it's been, what is it, over 40 degrees for 26 days in a row? Jeepers. Good evening, Jaden. Good evening, Sounds Vintage. And yeah, we're back. So it's Thursday. Anything goes on a Thursday. You know how it works. Throw anything at me that you care to and we'll run with it. Oh, here's a question. Yeah, questions are very welcome on a Thursday. Boaty, what's your favourite car of all time? Gosh, that's a difficult one. Let's throw that one out there. Right, you lot out there, what's your favourite car of all time? I'm going to have to think about this. My favourite car of all time. Well, let's run through some possibilities. Right, I'm going to take it that by favourite, it needs to be a car that I've actually experienced. Rather than one that, you know, a car that I've owned, rather than one that I think would be a favourite, but I've never actually driven. So, gosh, let's think. Well, there's a few candidates. Tell me what you think of my candidates. Right. A Range Rover Classic 4.2 LSE. Loved that. Absolutely loved that. What else? Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 2 with an Oswald Bailey handling kit on it. And a Webasto roof. That would be up there. Toyota Supra twin turbo, that wouldn't be far away. Bentley Turbo R, that would definitely be there. Lamborghini Espada Series 3, that was just, oh, would that be the one? Lamborghini Espada. Bristol Beaufighter would be right up there in the top 3. Citroen CX GTI 1, I had 1 and 2, but the GTI 1 had that little bit more quirkiness. Citroen CX Prestige with the louvered back window, extended wheelbase model, that would be up there. Right, if I had to pick one, I will go for, if I've got to pick just one, Lamborghini Espada Series 3. I mean, it was just incredibly exciting. You got aroused every time you just looked at it. And when you walked up to it, it was like astounding, because imagine walking up to a car and the car comes up to below your belt buckle line. It was idiotically low slung, and it had a tremendous interior, one of my favourite interiors of all time. And it had a Lamborghini V12, what's not to love? And you could get it with an automatic gearbox. If memory serves, it was a 3-speed torque flight, I think. So, yeah, that's my answer. Lamborghini Espada Series 3. I'll be interested to read yours. That's like asking what vital organs you like the most. It is really difficult. Morris Minor, says Jaden. Have you ever owned a car you didn't crash, asks Matt. Yeah, I've only crashed. The only cars I've crashed in my life would be bumping Stigbürt into the curb and the little prang I had in Derrick. Never had any bumps in any others, I don't think. Let me think back. Oh, technically, I did drive a Daimler V8 into the wall of the showrooms when the brakes failed. And I just couldn't wrestle the thing to a stop. But that was only a little nudge. Actual crashes. When I'm driving, I've only been in one actual crash involving another vehicle, and that was in my little K11 Micra when a white van took me. I had a right result out of that. This would have been about 6 years ago, and I bought this little Micra, a little black K11 Tempest, and I bought it for 150 quid, and I bought it to do. I bought it when I started at the restaurant because I think my other cars at the time were. I think I had 2 X-types and two S-types. Jags and a Lexus RX. So I bought the little Micra as just purely as a little runaround, and I'd had it for a bit, paid 150 quid for it. I went to Stockport, Hazel Grove, I think, to get it. Facebook Marketplace job, you know. And I'd had it for about 3 days, and I was just driving down, and white van man, who was in front of me, went onto the right hand side of the road and up onto the curb and parked. So I just carried on driving down down my correct lane, and then suddenly white van man decided that he was going to reverse onto his drive. So having stopped, he then just went whoop, driving onto the wrong side of the road, didn't look, didn't see me coming. I slammed the anchors on, almost stopped in time, and he took out my right hand front wing. Now the car was still drivable, and indeed I continued to use it for about another year, and then gave it to Boo for her to learn in, became her car. But the insurance wrote it off. I was allowed to keep the car, and I got, I think, 850 quid for it, which isn't bad, like 3 days after I just paid 150 quid for it. And then I was sent to some quack of a doctor, and I got a £2,000 injury payout. But yeah, those are the only crashes. It's been an unexpected year because I just haven't had any. I've been really adept all my life at avoiding crashes, at assuming other people are going to do the wrong thing and managing to stay out of their way. And I'm not the worst driver in the world. I've done a variety of advanced driving courses. I did the AA Drive Tech and was assessed as the lowest risk possible. So yes, I've driven many cars that I haven't crashed, especially the expensive ones. Couldn't really afford to crash them. I remember driving the Testarossa and being terrified. I drove the Testarossa from Portway to Henley in Arden to the pub. And if you know that route, then it's all A roads. And a Testarossa is wider than a transit van. And then beyond the width of the car, you've got those stupidly expensive, spindly mirrors sticking out. That was a terrifying journey, because every time something was coming the other way, it's going to get the mirror. There we are. What's the update on the crash with the Mini? No update there, to be honest. They got a quote for the repair. I agreed to pay it, and I'm paying it. That's it. No real update. What colour would you have the fleet if you couldn't have silver? Well, silver wasn't my choice. It just so happened that the first two cars were silver, and so the others just carried on. What colour would I choose? Oh, I think probably my favourite colour, and I can't remember what it's called now. It's a Ford colour from the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's green, and it's not called green. It's called something metallic. I had my Focus, my Mark 1 Focus was that colour, and my Mark 6 Fiesta that I've had quite recently was that colour. Can't remember what it's called, but obviously that's not a Rover colour, an MG Rover colour, so I couldn't have that colour. I don't know, what's that grey? Is it X-Power grey? Something like that. That's not a bad colour. Good question, that, Simon. What's up, my reverend brethren, says Smashing Buttocks. What go on a bread bin, asks Matt. I don't know. Mark 4 Supra Buttocks, says Pingu. Which one's the Mark 4? I get my Supras mixed up. The original one was the... Now, I was fond of... I don't know what mark it was, but the... not the original one. So would it have been a Mark 2 or a Mark 3? Pop-up headlights. A bit roundy, but not the... squashed up roundy one with the concave dash and the Targa roof option. The one before that, I was very fond of that. I had about 6 of those, and they were all UK turbos, but then I had one import, which was a Japanese twin turbo import, and that had all of the, that had the full... Sorry, I've got a real frog in my throat tonight. That was in pearlescent white metallic with burgundy full leather, and it had the full Knight Rider dash, the fully digitized dash being the import. And it had every toy that you can possibly imagine, every toy known to man. And it was stunningly quick, fantastic to drive, imposing to look at and imposing to sit in. I was very, very fond of that. I did a deal on that with a 2.8 injection Capri, not the Brooklyns that I had afterwards. An earlier 2.8 injection Capri, must have been an early one because it had a 4-speed box. But I did a lot of miles in that Supra, really loved it. I went on a long driving holiday with original Chinese Madam, Mark 1. Long before, well, decades before recent Chinese Madam, but before Ling Li. Number 1, my first Chinese fiancée, Lei Yun. And yeah, we went on a driving holiday all around the UK and that. It was a stunning thing. I absolutely adored it. And I liked the one that came after as well. Had a couple of those. And I've been on, you know, I've said before that in real terms, that's probably the quickest car that I've ever. I mean, I've owned cars that were a lot quicker, you know, in theory or on paper, but in real terms, real driving, day-to-day stuff, A to B, that was such a quick car, that twin turbo thing, automatic as well. And it was just so easy to drive. You could send your missus or your grandmother down to the shops, or you could get in and poke the loud pedal, and it was crazy. I remember the day I bought that. I had a date with a girl in Northampton. I think it was Northampton, somewhere down there, and it was like a first date. But I had something on in the morning, so I couldn't stay the night. So I ended up coming home in the wee small hours, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I remember coming down the what is it? I was going to say 54, and it's not. That's a Telford one. And then I was going to say 55, and it's not. That's the Blackpool one, isn't it? Oh, the M45. The M45, which was a really good test track. It was a good surface back in the day. The bends were not too bendy, and there were never any police, and it was a really quiet motorway. So I remember coming back in that twin turbo super thing, and I thought, right, let's see what it'll do. And so I put my foot down, and I just thought, I'll max it out and I'll see what it'll do. And when I hit 155, there was kind of a thump, and I thought, shit, I've broken it, and panicked and backed off. And it took a good 10 minutes before sanity returned, and I realised that that it was limited, that it had a 155 limiter on it. But that was a fabulous car. I loved the dashboard. I loved the big curved wraparound. It always reminded me a bit of a bus in a weird way. Because you've got like the curved, the dashboard was curved around the driver, and then it's squared off for the passenger. So you kind of felt ensconced within it. And I really enjoyed that. I'm already on the naughty step, serving a life sentence, so I thought I'd risk it, says Matt. I've had too many carbs today, says Simon. Well, what have you had? Give us details. I'm enjoying liquid carbs as we speak, says Sounds Vintage. Alcoholics Anonymous do a driving course, asked Matt. No, I meant the AA as in the Automobile Association. They've been around quite a long time, quite well known. But obviously they're probably best known for providing an emergency breakdown service to their members. But they do other things as well, such as car insurance and all sorts of things, I believe. But they do a professional large vehicle driving course called AA Drive Tech. Some of you might well have done it. And so, and it ends up with, it's quite an involved examination. There's a written theory exam that you do in a classroom type environment. There's a driving test where you have to carry out specific manoeuvres in your large vehicle. And then there's, I can't remember what they called it, but there's a real life thing where having been instructed, by the way, you then have to go out with the AA dude in the passenger seat, and they do a continual assessment of you over like a 4 or 5 hour period. So it's quite an involved thing. And then when you come out at the other side of it, you get ranked with a risk rating, which, if memory serves, was quite simply like a traffic light, low risk, medium risk, high risk, depending upon how you performed along the 3 days of the exams and whatnot. And it was at the time, I don't know if it still is, quite well regarded. And so any company that puts their drivers through that will get quite heavily discounted insurance. And the drivers that are classified as low risk will be, obviously, they will qualify for even lower rates of insurance. So, yeah, that was that. I have driven bigger vehicles. I've got loads of experience in driving up to 7.5 tonners. Now, I've got experience in driving other things as well, but not all of it is entirely legal. So, I mean, I've told you before that I used to do the bus tour driving a London Routemaster double-decker that I wasn't bloody licensed to drive. But that's all in the long ago, and the statute of limitations on any potential prosecutions will hopefully have expired by now. I've had a go at driving Arctics and Rigids and massive great furniture lot. Do you know, one of the most difficult vehicles I've driven, I would have to say, would be a stretch limousine. If you've ever driven a full-on stretch limo, they're bloody difficult things to drive. They really are. Not least because one of the problems with me driving any sort of limo is that they squeeze every inch of space that they can for the passenger. So any car-derived limo will have less room in the driving compartment than the car equivalent, which for a man of my size makes driving them very difficult. Dorchester limos were particularly guilty of that. And of course the same is true of taxis. I've owned, you know, that's a vehicle that I'd love to own again. I owned taxis for a period, London taxis. I had, what was it called? Came before the Fairway. FX4? FX4, I think the Fairway had the 2.7 Nissan, didn't it? And I had the one that came before, the FX4, that used to rot like bloody hell. But I also had a Metro cab. I owned those both simultaneously. And they were both named after members of the Bee Gees. They were Robin and Morris. And I was never that fond of the FX4, if I'm honest. Although it did get more attention. But I absolutely loved the Metro cab. Made by Metro Camel Wayman. Oh, was it MCW? Metro Camel Wayman or something. It had the 2-litre DI transit engine, 4-speed automatic gearbox, and I loved that thing. Fiberglass, of course, so no rot issues on the body. And that was the one that I twice drove all around France with the missus and the kids. I bought them because when I first got involved with Mags, who I went on to marry, she came fully equipped with 4 children. And at the time I met her, I was driving, I had my 928 Porsche and my 931 Turbo. Or was it a 951 Turbo? Oh God, I forget the model codes. Both of which were quite selfish because they would have excluded the kids. So I had to think about it. And I went down to London and bought a couple of taxis. So I thought, well, I grew up being driven about in a taxi because my dad was a taxi driver. After he had his nervous breakdown, so he left his proper career. And then after he'd spent 10 years working with the gangs and beating people up or killing them for a living, he took his test and drove a black cab in Birmingham. So I kind of grew up sitting in the back of a black cab, and I thought it was quite cool. So I thought that my kids might think it was quite cool as well. So I bought a couple of taxis, and I thought I won't have to listen to them squabble, because they'll be in the back. I can, with their mum or whatever, I can just slam the divider shut. So I set up the stereo so that it only played in the front of the cab. And then I set up DVD players and whatnot in the back to keep the kids amused. And they were fabulous. Absolutely great. And as I say, went all around France, took the kids and the missus and my mother all around France in Morris, actually, not in Robin, in Morris. Morris was the metro cab. And I eventually got rid of them and got a proper family car. Excuse me. And a Toyota Previa, supercharged 8-seater mid-engined thing. It was like a supercharged mid-engine mobile bed. It was absolutely brilliant. Big Mama, we called her. Maggie normally drove her, but when we went on family outings, I'd drive. And at that time, we were living down the road, bottom of the hill in Chesterfield, but of course we had the cottage in South Wales. And we would go and spend weekends there, which was a bit of a trek, like 4.5 hours. And after we'd done it once or twice, the kids cottoned on to the fact that you could fold all the seats down and make like a massive queen-size bed. So they did exactly that. And Maggie thought, if you can't beat them, join them. They all used to like sleeping during a car journey. No, I can't do that. I can't sleep in a car, I can't sleep on a train, and most annoyingly, I cannot for the life of me sleep on a plane. So when I was doing long-haul commutes to the States and back, that was an absolute nightmare because my eyes were wide up. I used to take the red eye with Virgin from O'Hare to Heathrow. I used to try everything, and I could never ever sleep. Never. I've never slept on an airplane. Doesn't matter how drunk I am or how much food I eat. Can't do it. How tired I am. I think it's because I'm excited by flying, maybe. But no, I can't sleep in cars either. There's too much to see. But the kids and the missus, they would make their bed in the back of the Previa, all 5 of them. You know, it was like a scene from a 1960s sitcom. All squidged together in the bed. I'm so sorry, I've got a desperate frog in my throat tonight. So they're all squidged up together, and they got millions of pillows and cushions and their massive old duvet, and they would just doze throughout the whole journey. I'd wake them up when we got there, and they became very expert at this. Our standard day out, because we were all roller coaster enthusiasts. I'd be interested to know if you are. And we always had a day out. When we were at the cottage, we always went to Oakwood Park. Pretty much, I think, Wales's only theme park. Great place, or it used to be anyway. None of these stupid queues that you get at Alton Towers and the like, where you spend 2 hours in a queue. And that was our favourite wooden roller coaster there, a roller coaster called Megaphobia, which wasn't an old one, it was a modern wooden roller coaster, built very specifically for the park in, the late 80s, I think, don't quote me. And we loved Megaphobia. We'd be on it about 40 times over the day. I've got some really cool pictures of us on it, because we had a thing where we had to do special poses for the camera to show how absolutely cool we were. So when everybody else is doing that or that, if they're brave, we're reading books or having a fight and throttling each other, and even on the way back from Oakwood, it was absolute tradition that they'd get into bed. We'd all be knackered, you know, it's a long old day. and they'd get into bed and sleep all of the way home. And I would complain about that because I couldn't have the radio on because I didn't want to disturb them. And I'd always say to Maggie, I'd say, Mags, come on, you sit in the front seat and keep me company, keep me awake, because I'm tired as well. And the last thing I want to do is bloody nod off. So, and she'd say, yeah, of course, no problem. And she'd clamber into the front seat and we'd talk for about 10 minutes. And then she'd say, nope, you're on your own. I'm going to bed with them. And she'd clamber into the back and, you know, that was it. I mean, it was, Oakwood is down near Narberth. And it's kind of, oh God, it's, I think it was about a 2-hour drive from Oakwood back to where the cottage was in Pontnesfecken. But, oh, happy memories. Don't know why I'm talking about that. I've forgotten what led me onto it. Where did I get to? You could have any colour, says Simon. Oh, thank you. Green is an underrated colour these days. I wish I could think of the name of the Ford green. I mean, it almost doesn't look green. It's an incredibly light, and I can't remember. It's like a weird name. It's got nothing to do with green at all. It's just called something metallic. But that's a colour that I absolutely love. And yeah, I would be very happy to have the whole fleet in that colour, I think. Although it wouldn't really suit the Land Rover. I can't think of them in any other colour other than silver, really. Question. Now, on today's Daily Diary video, I gave out a load of hints as to the vehicle that I'm collecting on Monday. And I'm not going to give out the same hints here. I'm just going to ask you a question. The car that I'm hopefully collecting on Monday, is it colour matched to the fleet, or have I, in light of Derek staying for an indefinite period, have I decided that that's a bit silly? And is the car that's coming, for various reasons, is it actually a different colour? Just a little question. Oh, I will give you all of the other hints as well. What the hell? Because you guys won't all see it. Channel members will see it tomorrow. You guys won't, will you? And you are also my inner scrotum. So I'll give you the same hint. I've said that this will complete the collection, the fleet, which means that I think at least there's something missing on the fleet. Well, what is missing from the fleet? I sold a Rover 45 and I've never replaced it. So I've got 25, 75, Land Rover, F, TF. And I've also said that I would rather now go down an MG route than a Rover route. Hint number 2. Hint number 3. I think you all know that my favourite gearbox in the world is a Stepspeed gearbox. And that's it. That's all your hints. It shouldn't be difficult to work it out from there. You'll all guess anyway. As soon as the video goes up and you see where I get off the train, you'll all know what's happening. But there we are. Give it a chance to do a little bit of thinking and detective work. If you're interested, you might not be interested. You might well not be interested. You might well not give a toss. And why should you? Fanny news. Fanny is now back on sale. And she's now back on sale. Oh God, there's a story behind Fanny, and I'm not going to go into it now. I will just say that, as you know, Fanny was sold or dealt. And then Fanny mysteriously reappeared into the yard, and we've subsequently been somewhat quiet about it. What I can report now is that Fanny has been today for an inspection, and has been inspected by 2 different people and personally inspected by Mustard, and I'm talking about underneath. And how can I put this delicately? There's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's the car is 100% as we described it, and there are no issues. And now that we're certain of that, then the car is back on sale as per the original price, and as per all of the original description, except we've now got a bit of engineering to actually back that up. I can't really go into too much, but I'm sure you can read between the lines and figure out what's gone on. So yeah, Fanny is back and is going to make somebody an utterly fantastic car. Now, to take a hypothetical example, if the car that I was going to pick up on Monday was black, just say, if it happened to be the car that filled in the gap in my collection, had some things that I really liked, and happened to be black, would I then like to swap some of the fleet around, and would I like to have Fanny, who is also, well, she's anthracite metallic, but kind of black, and have a black and silver fleet? Yeah, it's a thought, isn't it? Because Fanny is a fantastic car, absolutely fantastic, and an important car, and a really good asset and an appreciating asset. And Mustard and I were clutching our little tinkles with excitement when she got the all clear. And now that we know that we can absolutely sell her with confidence, knowing that our description is 100% accurate, despite what somebody else might have said. Can't say too much, said too much already. Pingu says, talking Supras, Mark 3 is 86 to 92. Yeah, so it'd be the Mark 3 I had about 6 of. And Mark 4 is 93 to 99. Yeah, I had 2 of those. I had a normally aspirated aero top, which was fabulous. Oh God, I wish I had that now. It was the right colour. It was silver. And I had the twin turbo, and they were both fabulous. I like green, says Matt. Simone is with us and says, evening. And Simone, oh, bless you, Simone. Simone is feeling like shite, so to hear that. I, say Simon, would quite like a Porsche Boxster at the moment. Well, I'd like a real one, but I might be able to afford a Boxster one day. A Boxster is a real Porsche, as long as it's a Boxster S. I sold loads of Boxsters when they were current, and the original Boxster was a bit of a hairdresser's car. The Boxster S was a big improvement. I was never a massive fan, if I'm honest, but I didn't actively dislike them. I disliked the pedal position in the Boxster. It was one of those cars where you have to consciously position your foot, because if you allow your foot to relax to its natural position, you will find that you are not maintaining the correct or the desired pressure on the accelerator. So if you're doing a long motorway journey and you're sitting at, say, 75 and you're not concentrating, you'll suddenly look down and realise that you're doing 55 because your foot just slides off the accelerator. So I found that slightly annoying, and I was never 100% convinced on the looks. It looked a bit like a push me pull you. You couldn't really tell which end was the front and which end was the back. And I like a car that's more defined in terms of frontness and backness. But not a bad car, not by any means. And I'm way out of touch with the prices, so I don't know what you'd have to pay for a decent one nowadays. But I can well imagine a nice car to own. And it is a Porsche. And a Porsche has got, the name carries a bit of kudos, I suppose, doesn't it? And if you've never owned one, I can imagine that you might well like to. And as for it not being a real Porsche, well, I'm not a fan of real Porsches. Real Porsches, by which people mean 911s usually, they've got a nasty habit of trying to kill you because the weight is all in the wrong place. And the handling characteristics are quirky, to say the least. And the pedal positions are ridiculous. If you've never driven a 911, or at least, I don't know what modern ones are like, I haven't got a clue. I'm talking about up to, up to early 90s. Then the pedals, they were Volkswagen Beetle pedals. They were floor hinged. Oh, awful. And you've got that ridiculous skew width seating arrangement. So most of us are used to a seating arrangement in a car where you sit down and the pedals are directly in front of your seat, front and centre. Would make sense, you might think. Not to Ferdinand Porsche, it didn't, who decided that you should have to sit all lopsided in a bloody 911 because the pedals are offset. There might be some clever engineering reason why that was necessary, but I'm not aware of it. What I am aware of is that if, and this is true of all rear-wheel drive cars or rear-engine cars or rear-engine, rear-wheel drive cars, but it is particularly true of a 911, that if you barrel into a bend a little bit too quick and you just back off, then you don't get lift off oversteer. What you get is a spin. Your arse is in front of your eyes quicker than you can say Jack Robbins. You've got virtually no chance of catching it unless you're some sort of genius. And the next thing you know, you're going to be wrapped around a tree. And I was never a big fan of that. So, so the idea of real Porsches doesn't really appeal to me quite as much. So I wouldn't look down on a Boxster by any manner or means. But then I've never really been a Porsche fan. I loved my 928, but that's a very different thing. That's a big old 5-litre V8 Grand Tourer with an automatic slush box. Completely different kettle of halibut is that. And I really, really liked my 931 Turbo, or Nick, my neighbour, insists it's a 951, and I'm sure it's a 931. It was basically the 924, which everybody did sneer at. God, how did people sneer at that? They said it was an Audi with a van engine, which, wasn't entirely untrue. But the Turbo, again, was a different kettle of halibut. The Turbo had the 2.5-litre lump, and mine was a Turbo 2. So it had a massive turbocharger on it. I mean, it wasn't throwing out massive power, but it was throwing out 187 brake, which in a car that weighs next to nothing was more than enough to have a lot of fun. And it was really well set up. The driving position was amazing full stop, certainly amazing compared to a 911. It had a Getrag dogleg box in it, and I love a dogleg box. I'm all in favour of a dogleg box because, to me, it makes perfect sense. And again, if you've never driven one, a dogleg box means that first, instead of being away and up, First is away and down. Reverse is normally away and up with a safety gate. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 is in the H pattern. And 2, 3, 4, 5 are what you're going to be using while driving. So it makes much more sense to have second at the top of the H rather than having it on a dog leg away and down. So I was always a big fan of a dog leg box, and I've probably told this story before, but I had a guy part exchange a BMW M6 with me, and one of the reasons he wanted to get rid of it, he confided when we'd done the deal, was that he couldn't believe a car of that calibre would have a 4-speed gearbox. And I said, it hasn't, it's got a 5-speed. He said, no it hasn't, and he'd been driving it, pulling away in second all the time. He didn't realise at first it was on a dog leg, because of course on an M6 you didn't have the gear, the gear things on the gear knob. You had an M on the gear knob. Anyway, that was another story, and one I've probably told before. In fact, I'm sure I have. I wonder what Mustard's curry turned out like, asks Matt. I haven't got a clue. Obviously, I was at work, so I couldn't watch his live stream. But he said that he enjoyed it, and I'm sure that you all did too. It certainly did good numbers, as his live streams always do, because we all love a bit of mustard, don't we? And I've never eaten any of his food, but he strikes me as a reasonably decent cook. Sounds vintage says, I've never actually hit the limiter in my car. I'm not sure it's got one. I forget where your car is, mate. Matt says, I'm too poor for that AA. And Sounds Vintage agrees, AA is pricey. It bloody is. And they do that awful trick on you when you get it cheap for a year and then it doubles in price. And I still haven't done it. I got caught by that yet again. I paid 50 something quid last month, and I need to leave and rejoin. But I would always be a member of the AA because I've tried the others, and by comparison, they're not just bad, they're entirely unfit for purpose in my experience. So I wouldn't go anywhere other than the AA. I've got nothing but really good experiences with them. Whereas with any of the others, and I've been with them all, I've got nothing but bad experiences. So I think the AA are worth every penny, and they do things that the others won't. I mean, if you're, I've done this twice. I didn't know you could do this. Somebody told me, and it turned out to be true, right? I had a car where the brake pad suddenly went down to metal. Didn't get much of a warning, and suddenly it's metal on metal. Called the AA out. They said, yeah, your brake pads are gone. Would you like me to go and get some for you and fit them? Yes, please. So off they went to the local motor factors, bought some brake pads, fitted them. I paid for the brake pads. They were fitted free of charge, all part of your AA membership. Well, that's brilliant. You've just got to get your head. Yeah, they cost a bit. It costs a bit, does the old AA, but you've just got to get your head around using them as for something more than total emergencies. So if you own a Rover 75 or an MG ZT and you need to change your headlamp bulb, you will find that you can't do it. Or, you know, unless you're a really clever person or mechanically non-inept person. I certainly can't bloody do it. Call the AA. They'll do it for you. They'll charge you for the bulb, and that's fair enough. And that bulb might cost £2 more than you would be able to get it for at your local motor factors. But worth it. They come to your house, they fit it, they get their hands dirty, they jack the car up, take out the inner wing flitch, fit the bulb, and my guy the last time even pushed out a little dent for me while he was in there. So if you use them for things like that, as well as out and out emergencies, suddenly they're not bad value. But always tip your AA guy. If they're a nice guy and they go over and above, give them a drink. They're allowed to accept tips. the AA, I didn't know this. I've always tipped the AA when they've done a great job. And I was talking to Neil about this on Monday, because Neil is an AA mechanic. And they're allowed to accept up to £35 tip. So if they do a good job for you, give them a tip. It'll still be a hell of a lot cheaper than going down to your local garage. Oh, that's nice. Weird night at work tonight. Two of them are dropping dead with COVID. It was an absolutely dead night, and then bizarrely at 9 o'clock, all hell let loose and the restaurant was packed. We had a party of 29 come in at 9 o'clock. Gosh. That advanced thing sounds like the motorbike thing they do, where they teach you to make progress, i.e. don't get stuck behind cars. Okay, wouldn't know anything about that, obviously. Matt's got a mate who drives limos. Did you ironically call the Austin FX4 taxi Morris? No, I didn't, John. And evening, by the way. The FX4 was called Robin. Morris was the Metro cab. Hello, kiddies, says Stephen S. Paul. Which F1 has the best livery this season? And this is a question from Simon. I quite like the Ferrari this year. The Alfa Romeo is nice as well. Well, I'll give you an honest answer to that. I haven't got a clue, because these days, for the past 2 years, I've enjoyed my Formula One exclusively on the radio. So I haven't got a clue what the cars look like. Not a clue. Now, because I listen to everything, all of the podcasts, all of the practice sessions, everything, then I reckon I've got a bloody good insight into F1, but I don't have a clue what the cars look like. So there you go. But I reckon the best F1 livery ever was the, was it Lotus? John Player Special Cars? The black with the double gold coach line. Matt's off to bed and says goodnight all. You haven't lived, says Stephen S. Paul, until you've bought and used an old taxi as a daily driver for a time. I agree. I still own a couple. And I think I've said this before, but obviously Matt, our chum Matt of Furious Driving, who was quite rude to me on Twitter. I told you last night that I replied to his thing about where he had an unsuitable for ad revenue strike. And I commented that that about 30% of my content is demonetized, which it is now, thanks to you lot. Last night's live stream, again, demonetized, standard thing now. But he actually replied to that today and says, only 30%. They must be missing a hell of a lot, the cheeky sod. But kind of fair comment. But yeah, Matt has got an American X-Police car. Ian has obviously got an American, it's an Australian, but it's an American type of car. And I would like one too. But my choice of American car would be, and you know, you have to have some personal involvement, don't you? And when I lived in Chicago, I loved the fact that all of the taxis seemed to be, or all of the yellow cabs, seemed to be Chevrolet Caprices. And I loved the lunacy of a city where the standard taxi was a 5-litre V8. And they were so dreadfully awful. They were all shagged in the back. You know, I don't think I ever went in one that hadn't had at least 7 murders, 3 births and a mugging take place in the back. And I just kind of fell in love with them. So if I ever became rich, then I would love to have a Chevrolet Caprice in full Chicago City cab livery. That would be right up there on my list. And I'd love to have that as a daily driver. Take that through the McDonald's drive-through. Simon is not a fan of rides and stuff. Well, each to their own. I've been a massive roller coaster fan since I was a kid. I think they're amazing. All of my family loved them. My best mate that I was talking about, he came on Sundays live. He's in Australia now. My best mate when I was at school, Chris Mills. He is a subber and he will come on the lives when he can. He certainly came on Sunday lunch live because it was evening for him. He was a coaster nutter too. And we went in the school holidays to the West Midlands Safari Park when they had a very advanced coaster, the Cobra. And we were members of the BCE, the British Coaster Enthusiasts. So we set a record of, because that was like our local thrill coaster, we set a record of, I honestly can't remember if it was 100 or 150 consecutive rides on it. In other words, we didn't get off. We stayed on it for 100 or 150 rides. But I love roller coasters, and I particularly love the wooden roller coasters. And I just think they're amazing. I've talked about them before. I love all of the coasters at Blackpool, or all of the traditional coasters. Megaphobia at Oakwood is a big old favourite. My absolute favourite Woody is probably Tonnerre de Zeus at Parc Asterix on the outskirts of Paris. But I've been on loads of American ones as well that were just absolutely fabulous. I'm not a fan of the fairground spinny, roundy type rides, but I love a roller coaster, and it has been way too long since I've been on one. And now I want to set up a community road trip to Oakwood Park so that we can all spend the day there and all go on Megaphobia together. Make sure that we're all on the same train and get some really cool pictures and make them into a collage. That would be fantastic. Actually, that is now the thing that I want to do more than anything else in the world. And I will genuinely think about trying to set that up. A road trip to Oakwood Park. We'd have to do it. Oh, realistically, we'd have to do it as an overnight. We'd have to go down on the one. I suppose we'd have to do it over a weekend, wouldn't we? Or do it during the holidays. And we'd have to go down on one day, stay overnight. God, we could combine it and camp. Who'd be up for that? Who would be up for that? And then do Oakwood the next day, and then the big road trip home and get home late the next night. That'd be amazing. God, I'd love that. Has anybody heard the news re car insurance price increases across the board? No, I hadn't heard that. What colour is Derek? Is it royal blue? Something blue pearlescent. I forget which. I did check. How many wheels does it have? How many wheels does what have? John. I'm not going to read that out, but good guess. Simon says, this Friday collection sounds fishy. And then says, why not get the cars you sell AA checked to stop any comebacks? Well, there's a very simple and obvious explanation to that. As you would know if you'd ever been a car dealer and ever had an AA check. AA checks are expensive and they are designed to find fault with new vehicles. I've had many cars AA checked. Would I do it for a modern classic? No, it would be ridiculous. The AA do a very thorough job and they are trained to find faults in a 6-month-old car. So as you can probably imagine, the idea of doing that to a modern classic car that hasn't been fully future-proofed and hasn't undergone a concours rebuild is just ridiculous, because you'd be spending a fortune to find out a load of stuff that you really, really, really didn't need to know. And it was nothing like that with Fanny anyway. It was much more simple. You know, basically it comes down to, I can't say too much. But what I said is correct. Fanny is absolutely as described. It has now been independently checked, and yeah, that's all there is to say about it. And if anybody else wants to crawl underneath and have a look at her and check out everything that we've talked about, you are more than welcome to. Pingu says, do you want to sell Wetleg yet? Sorry. Minge bag, maybe. Wetleg, no. And Pingu has, I'm not going to read that bit out, but Pingu has jumped to the same idea as John did. Cheeseburger, and so I'm back from outer space. Served my 2-week naughty step. Where have you been, Cheeseburger? What happened? Have you had a ban? Oh my God. I thought you'd been quiet. Pingu says, I've test driven a couple of 997 911s and found them to feel like a heavy MR2 with brakes that don't do anything until you stamp on them. Actually enjoyed an E55 more. Cheeseburger says, last dogleg box I drove was an Iveco van. And also says that the RAC were good when the battery died on her car. And then says, what is the maximum number of visits each year with AA policy? Unlimited, there's no maximum number. £35 for a tip, says Cheeseburger, who's on a rant. I would want a respray for that. Black JPS driven by Senna and Mansell. Yeah, that was amazing. Haas had the same colours when they had Rich Energy on board. Right, jolly good. Oh, Cheeseburger had a modern Charger on hired in the States. Great experience, but a crap car. Oh, bless. Oh, right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the mother-in-law. Yeah, I forgot about that. Car insurance 30%, says Cheeseburger. My daughter has suffered it. Oh, well, that's bad news. I've got to raise a policy over the next couple of days to get ready for Monday, which I'm looking forward to, actually. I still haven't decided what to do for food. And I woke up to some bad news today when my train has been cancelled and I've got to sort out another one. But hey-ho. I really am looking forward to Monday. And I'm looking forward to what I think is an exciting and worthwhile project for a car that is pretty rare, kind of really rare, and is only going to get rarer, and I think is very worthwhile to, as a long-term permanent project, to throw money at it when one has money to throw. And which, as I say, as far as I'm concerned, will make the fleet. I'm so sorry, I've got hiccups. I've got raving hiccups now. Frogs in throat, hiccups, it's never ending, isn't it? So yeah, I really am excited. It's a car that I'm genuinely excited to own. And to play with and to improve and even take to shows and things. All sorts of plans I've got. And yeah, and so yeah, that's going to be happening on Monday, and tonight is Thursday, so with the exception of the live stream on Sunday, which I do plan to do again, I won't see you until Monday, and I might not even see you on Monday, to be honest. I'm not exactly sure how Monday's going to go, especially now with the trains. I'll tell you what happened. I booked a much later train than would have been ideal because it was substantially cheaper. And, you know me, of course I'm skint. Of course I am, I'm always bloody skint. How are you buying a car, I hear you ask? Well, you know, there's another hint, isn't it? I would have to be buying a car that I could somehow buy without having any money on on some sort of installment plan or something like that. So it would have to be, it would have to be coming from somebody that knew and trusted me, wouldn't it? So yeah, I got a later train than ideal because it was cheaper, and now I'm going to have to get a later train still, and I'm not 100% certain how trouble-free the drive home will be. So I'm not sure about Monday night's live stream. I'm not sure what's going to happen. It might be as normal and there might be a live when I get home, or it might be a later one at 11 instead of 10, or I might do a live en route. I might stop off at a services or something and actually do a live, or maybe even a couple of lives en route. Haven't decided yet, but there we are. Bloody hell, 1,000 quid to insure your daily, up from 300 quid with no claims, cheeseburger. That's, oh God, those are horrific. Bloody hell. Right, I'm not looking forward to trying to sort out insurance now. Dear me. I mean, obviously, I'm going to go for a full-on, very low mileage, agreed value, classic policy, if I can possibly get one. So, yeah, I need to do that tomorrow, really, because it's a weekend coming up, and I'll have limited chances on Monday. But I think that is about us for tonight, darlings. Thank you for your company, as always. And I'll be doing a live on Sunday, lunchtime live, but I'm sure a lot of you will be off and out enjoying yourself or doing different things and won't be able to catch that. And I'll catch up with you at some point in some way on Monday. I'm just not sure exactly what it'll be yet. Because the timings are it's going to be a really late collection. To give you an idea, the collection isn't going to take place until early evening now. It was supposed to be late afternoon, and it's now going to be in early evening. And then God only knows what's going to happen then. So, yeah, it's all a bit of an unknown quantity. So I probably won't schedule a live stream for Monday night. We'll play it by ear. I may well, especially if I break down, I may well do a live or two along the way home. And I might do the thing where I take Bluetooth with me and invite you guys to ring me up as well. I enjoyed doing that when I collected Wetleg. And I'm going to be on my own for obvious reasons. I think it will be obvious to all of you why Mustard won't be going with me on the collection, if you get what I mean. I can tell you, it's inner scrotum stuff, isn't it? So yeah, I'm going to be on my own, so maybe I'll do the phone-in thing again. I did enjoy that with Wetleg. I thought it was really cool. But I'll sort all of that out in the Facebook group. And if you're not a member of the Facebook group, please do join Boaty's World on Facebook. You'll find a page and a group. Join the group, like the page if you would. Thank you very much. And night everyone, says Simon. Have a good weekend. Thanks, Boat, says Cheeseburger. It's late in the evening. She's wondering what clothes to wear. She puts on a makeup, brushes her long blonde hair. Great song, that. Wonderful tonight. Clapton. Brilliant. I said, my darling, you look wonderful. Oh, sorry, Steve Nespaul, I do apologise. Right, okay. I'll play you some farts instead, shall I? Unmute. Where are we? There we are. Turn the volume up. There we go, darlings. Thank you so much for your company tonight and throughout the week. Thank you for watching the videos and your support generally. Have a safe and peaceful night. Have a great weekend. If you can make it, I'd love to see you for the live at lunchtime on Sunday. Otherwise, have a great time. Have the best weekend that you can. Take great care of yourselves. Much love to you all. And I will see you somewhere at some time on Monday, if I don't see you on Sunday. Okay, bye-bye.